Hi, Courtney.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you.
Yeah.
Really glad to be here because I know it took us a while to make this happen.
We've been getting dates in for months.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are finally here. So for people who listen to the podcast regularly, they will have heard me talk about you or mention like the value that you've brought. We had Lauren on last week and she was saying the same thing. So I thought it'd be really valuable to get you on and just talk about you as a therapist and your input on mindset and perspective and stuff. So do you want to give a little bit of an intro into who you are?
Yes. Always hard giving an intro into yourself, I find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm Courtney and I am a therapist based in Manchester. So I've had my own practice for about 4 years now, which I started up in lockdown. And yeah, do a lot of work around relationships. And when I say relationship therapist, people always presume it's like romantic relationships, but it's more like your relationship with yourself, all of your interpersonal relationships, understanding how you show up in those relationships. And yeah, when I'm not being a therapist, I guess I'm just living a pretty regular millennial life. So, yeah, getting up to no good myself sometimes.
I think that is probably one of the main reasons why I definitely connected with you as a therapist, because from my personal experience and from a lot of my friends' experience of going to a therapist, not to stereotype, but they're usually a little bit older, female or male or whatever. But I know from my first therapist, I wanted someone like my mom, and it was so easy to find because there was a lot of therapists like my mom. And I think it is quite hard to find someone who is younger, a similar age, of a similar mindset, lives a similar lifestyle. So when I came to you, I thought that was amazing because you got it, like you understood.
And that's the same for a lot of my clients. They will come to me because of my age. They feel more comfortable speaking about maybe certain things. And you are seeing a lot of younger therapists coming through now, but definitely when I started out, I'd say, I think I was probably one of the youngest therapists in Manchester. But yeah, you want somebody who you feel like can relate to your experiences. And I know older therapists, or all therapists, it's about giving you that space that isn't judgmental, but I've heard a lot of people share about maybe holding back on certain things when they do feel like they're sitting there with somebody who reminds them of a parent.
I hadn't actually thought about that. But yeah, you did definitely create like a safe space. What, in terms of relationships, and there's things that I've written here that I want to talk about, like perspective shift and inner child stuff, but they're things that I just took away from you. And so in terms of relationships, but going like another layer deeper than that, would you say like your specialist subjects are perspective, or like how does that bit work in therapy?
So I'd say my particular areas of interest are a lot to do with inner child work, which involves going deep into somebody's childhood, their relationships from their early years, whether that's the parents, siblings, whoever they were spending the most time with, and trying to understand how those relationships are influencing them in the present. So I don't believe that anybody escapes childhood without any unmet needs, no matter how amazing your childhood was. So yeah, do a lot of kind of like joining the dots really, and helping people make sense of their own behaviours. And yeah, not just that, but I get people coming for all sorts of things really. Do a lot around helping people be more compassionate towards themselves, have like a more nurturing relationship with themselves.
Why do you think people are so hard on themselves?
Well, lots of different reasons really. I think the world that we live in now, people will compare a lot. I know this kind of sentence that I'm about to say is, you hear it all the time, but it's like we compare the parts of us we don't like around everybody's like highlights, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, a lot of people will have that sense of not feeling good enough, which can stem from lots of different things, you know, their upbringing, previous relationships, and a lot of clients that I work with will be a lot around like inner critic, how people view themselves, how they speak to themselves, and I think it comes just really naturally for a lot of people to be so critical towards themselves, and you know, maybe that comes from a place of survival as well. It's like if I point out my weaknesses, I think it's a protective behaviour. I think that's where it comes from. You know, if I point out my own weaknesses, and I identify all these things I don't like about myself, it's sort of like it's tricking yourself to feeling like you're in control. It's like I'm doing it before anybody else is.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's an unintentional consequence to that, isn't there? Because you're putting yourself down all the time, and that's obviously going to lead to anxiety and low mood.
What are the top, because I think a lot of people, and also what I found when I came to you is, you think things and you'd be like, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I can't believe I'm thinking this. So it's like deep self-sabotage. What you helped me to do is understand that, and really have like a black and white approach to why you feel like that. And I think, I don't know if it's just me, but is it that a case of like a penny drop moment, and a lot of people that come to you, when you do explain why they're feeling the way they feel, are they then able to like let it go a little bit?
Yeah, I think when you understand the root cause of something, and you can recognise where your behaviours come from, it's going to be a lot easier to change that behaviour. Yeah. So, you know, in therapy, I will work with somebody through like their key historical like experiences. Yeah. And because of those experiences, people will develop like fears and threats. So they will be maybe external about the world and other people, or they'll be internal, and it'll be things that they feel about themselves. And then because of those feelings, you then develop protective behaviours, which often can be quite sabotaging. Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of an example. So say if somebody is experiencing overwhelm, quite intense emotions, they might deal with that by going out, drinking a lot, or taking drugs, or forming casual relationships with people, and temporarily that allows you to escape those feelings. It's escaping reality, isn't it? Yeah. So initially that starts off as a protective behaviour.
Why do we do that? Why? Is it purely just to run away from?
Well, yeah, I'd say, you know, to avoid, to escape reality, to maybe be in the present, and not face things that maybe feel too difficult to sit with. Yeah. But then the consequence of it is that the emotions don't go anywhere. We suppress it. It's energy. It sits within our body, and it's going to come out in different ways.
How do you navigate that if you're someone who is suppressing emotions and running away from stuff? I guess it's self-awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's self-awareness, and when you start to form like a compassionate relationship with yourself, you can start to create that sense of safety within yourself, so you can start to explore things that maybe felt too scary to do in the past. And that's where like inner child work comes in. So inner child work can help somebody form that loving and nurturing relationship with themselves, so they can feel like they're in a place where they can maybe explore things that they couldn't do in the past. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff around inner child, and there's the whole thing of like putting a picture of yourself as a kid on the mirror and all of that kind of stuff, and a lot of like gimmicky stuff. But how do you, if you're just at home on your own, or like you don't have the means to go to therapy or whatever, how do you actually start to dig into your childhood? Because I don't think I'd ever been able to do it until I came to you. I just didn't get it. I didn't know how to connect. But how can you do it? How can you form a deeper connection with your inner child? Well,
I'll just start by explaining a little bit about inner child for anybody who hasn't heard the term before. Well, inner child work or inner child healing involves, it's a way of working with trauma and healing trauma, and it involves connecting with the younger versions of ourselves, and creating that sense of safety, creating a loving environment, so that we can experience more fulfillment and I guess identify some of the sabotaging behaviours that we have. Inner child work can be quite difficult at times. It does bring up a lot of emotion for us. It's hard to think of how you could work with that at home because of how intense it can be. I wouldn't really advise anybody trying to do it without having a lot of support.
I don't know it, because I wouldn't say I'm someone who's gone through loads of trauma. So for people who have, it must be quite difficult anyway. But as like a quote unquote like normal, everyday, regular person, I did loads of inner child meditations and I just couldn't even see myself.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah. So inner child work involves a lot of like visualization techniques, meditation, where you can connect with that younger version of yourself, bring them into the present. So like if I was to ask you some of the negative thoughts that you have about yourself, or when you find your inner critic is at the worst, the way that you might speak to yourself, and then I asked you to picture a younger version of yourself sat in this room with us, would you speak to them in a way that you would speak to yourself?
Never in a million years. No.
Yeah, you wouldn't dream of it. How would you feel towards them?
Towards my
inner child.
younger self?
Yeah.
Happy, like, I don't know what the word is. Like proud, loving, caring, connected, I guess. Now.
So kind, loving, caring, proud, probably protective over them.
Yeah.
You'd speak to them in a way that was nurturing, encouraging, kind. And, it's remembering that younger version of you is you. They exist inside of you. Yeah. So the things like visualization, having your inner child like on your phone or having a picture of them around, it's a reminder that you are that person, you are that child. And when you find that your inner critic is quite loud, imagine that you're speaking to them. What kind of words would you be using with them? And how can you be more of that like loving parent? Like it's about reparenting yourself, really. How can you be that nurturing person to your present self?
How do you stay disciplined with stuff like that? Because I think about this a lot, like, and actually what I've come to realise is over time, your mindset and your language just start to change and become more positive and like kinder and softer. But sometimes I do think, like I listen to a lot of books and stuff, or like even things that you've told me, and I'm like, how do I remember to do this all the time? Like, how do you? Because it's not actually as difficult as you've got to, or is it? Check your thoughts all the time, because that's actually quite a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's about consistency, and I guess it is hard, isn't it, for us always to remember when we're trying to form new habits.
Yeah.
But you didn't come into this world with a negative inner critic.
No.
You have learned to do that. You've learned that behaviour.
Yeah.
And the reason that probably comes quite naturally now is because of how consistent you've been with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember from the work we did together when we spoke about limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So limiting beliefs are formed from our maybe experiences where we might feel something negative towards ourselves, and because of that experience we're consistently repeating that. We're looking for evidence all the time that might be true.
Yep.
So for example, maybe as a child you're left out, so you think, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So then you're telling yourself you're not good enough all the time. You're looking for evidence that you're not good enough. And over time, with the consistency, that becomes a belief that I am not good enough.
Yeah.
So you can undo that belief but it's about being consistent with it.
Yeah.
So you have to be telling yourself, I am good enough, and looking for evidence as to why you're good enough. That's where things like affirmations come in and why they work.
Yeah.
The more you're saying it, you're in that mindset where you're looking for the evidence of I am good enough then.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you wake up in the morning, you're going to work, and you say to yourself, oh, I don't want to go to work today, it's going to be a really rubbish day.
Yeah.
Everything that happens that day, you're looking for confirmation that this is going to be a rubbish day. You walk outside in Manchester where it's always raining, and it's raining, and you get pissed off because of it. It's every little inconvenience. Whereas if you're telling yourself, today's going to be an amazing day, I can't wait to go to work, you're going to laugh at these smaller things. It's not going to bother you as much, because you're looking for the evidence of this is going to be a great day.
Yeah.
But when you woke up that morning, you're stepping into the exact same day.
Yeah.
It's just choosing how you want to experience it, and it is within your power, isn't it?
Yeah. That, honestly, that is one of the biggest things, and I'd actually go as far as say life-changing when I came to you, because, it's making me a bit, because not even just me, I think a lot of people are someone who picks up the negative and carries it with them all day, and then you go to bed pissed off, you wake up pissed off, and you don't realise it, but there's like an undercurrent of like flatness within you sometimes.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And I think from when I started coming to you to when I left coming to you, all of that, like, it's not gone, like, sometimes it's still there, you have to talk to yourself about it, but it's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so much like lighter and freer and easier to live not being pissed off at everything.
Yeah. And going back to what I said about limiting beliefs and how we form certain beliefs about ourselves, our neural pathways, which are like the little signals that send messages through our brains, we can change them. So when we tell ourselves something over and over and over and over again, it moves from one part of our brain where it's just a thought to another part of our brain where we store it as a fact.
Okay.
So we can change that, and it's referred to as neuroplasticity. So I like to remember it as plasticity is like plasticine, so you can mould plasticine, you can change it. So you can move that fact to just being a thought again by working on the things like affirmations, telling yourself the opposite, challenging your negative thoughts. And that's how you can start to create that happier, more positive, more optimistic outlook on things.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? I think let's talk about perspective and perspective shift, because that kind of leads nicely on. I guess, and again, something I spoke to Lauren about was perspective, and she agreed that kind of you really helped her like shift her perspective on stuff. Almost, I think from personal experience, it was more so like actually looking at the bigger picture and the understanding of the why certain things would come into my mind, or I'd feel a certain way about certain things, or a lot of mine was like external validation and why that's come in. So we did the doll exercise.
Love that exercise.
I know, really good. But what are your thoughts on perspective, and what's your approach to perspective?
When you say perspective, what are you referring to there? Do you mean like mindset, or perspective on how we see ourselves?
Both, I guess. Okay, so for example, I could tell myself a lot of stuff that's actually not factual. I've just told myself that, or like that people think a certain way about me, or people are friends for a certain reason, or the world works in a certain way because of what I think, but it's actually not factual. It's just a narrative that I've told
created.
Myself.
Right, okay. So, in a type of therapy that I use, person-centered therapy, they refer to... Okay, so thinking about perspectives, I'm going to refer to a guy called Carl Rogers, which Carl Rogers is the guy who created type of therapy, which is person-centered therapy. So he spoke a lot about understanding ourselves and accepting ourselves for who we are. He's got lots of famous quotes, and I remember as I was doing my therapy training, some of them initially I wouldn't really understand, and then by the end of my training I was like, I get him, like he's making so much sense.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he says is that true understanding is the most precious gift that one can give to another. And I guess that is what therapy is all about. A therapist gives you that understanding.
Yeah.
They allow you to just be yourself. So he also said that people are just like sunsets if you let them be. So he said that, you know, when you watch a sunset, you just let it unfold. You don't try and change it. You don't say, I wish it was a bit more orange there, or if it was a bit brighter there. You just watch it in awe.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, that's how we should be with human beings.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, going back to his type of therapy, he refers to a human being when they're born as being their organismic self.
Yep.
So the organismic self is the most purest version, the most authentic version of ourselves that we will ever be.
Yep.
So if you think of a baby, when they're born, anything they need, what do?
Cry.
Yeah, they just cry, yeah. So feeding, you know, affection, sleep, they just cry and cry and cry until they get their needs met.
Yeah.
So as that child starts to grow, the child starts to learn that I can't just scream and cry. I need to act in a certain way to get what I want. So, for example, a toddler, a parent might say, if you want Father Christmas to come, or if you want sweets, you need to be a good girl, you need to be a good boy.
Yeah.
So that child starts to learn from a very young age, oh, I can't do what I want. I need to do what my mum says or my dad says.
Yeah.
So they start to be conditioned by the world around them. So then that child goes to school, you know, maybe that little girl wants to play football and she wants to go, you know, play in the mud and do all the things that the boys are doing. But girls play with dolls.
Yeah.
So she then starts to think, right, okay, I need to change. I need to do what everybody else is doing. So she's moving away from her organismic self, her authenticity, and she's being conditioned by everybody else around her. So
God, that's so easy done then, isn't it? Because
so easily done. Yeah. So think about how easily influenced you are in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, if I think about myself in high school, you know, everybody's smoking, everybody's going out drinking at the weekend. I want to do that. I want to be like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
So we start to adapt in accordance to what we feel we need to do to be accepted. It's our survival instinct kicks in.
Do you think people struggle with... It's funny that from high school and throughout school you want to be like everyone else, and as an adult you just want to be yourself.
Yeah, you want to be not
like everyone
else. Yeah. But that's probably us wanting to go back to our authenticity.
Yeah.
But then as an adult, we want to be more authentic, but we still have all these introjected values that we've like soaked in from everybody else that will lead us to making choices or acting in ways that is just not in alignment with who we are.
Yeah.
So that's what therapy does, and that's what a lot of we did when we worked together. It's identifying what are my beliefs and what are the beliefs of other people. Is that even true to who I am and the life that I want to live?
Yeah.
And it's about identifying what's me, what's somebody else, or what's my parents' voice? What are these things that I've been conditioned to believe? And do I actually agree with that?
Yeah.
Because we will... You'll see that a lot of adults will make choices based on beliefs that they have picked up from childhood.
Yeah.
And when they picked them up in childhood, they made sense of them from their child understanding of the world.
Yeah.
So if we look at that from our adult perspective, we can make sense of it, and it probably doesn't even apply to us, anymore as adults, but we've been living off that belief for so long, just like in autopilot.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly what I meant, I think, when I said perspective, because until it's flagged to you or someone mentions it, you don't even realise that you're thinking with the child brain, because it's so the norm and natural way of thinking to you, that until someone says, like, why do you think like that, or what's formed that impression or mindset, you don't actually think about it.
Yeah, I think it's Vex King maybe mentions in one of his books, I don't know if it's Healing is the New High or one of the books that he's done. He gives a really good example of this, where he says somebody that he was working with had difficulties, a bit of social anxiety, of speaking up in group environments, and one of their friends said to them, you never give your input in groups, like it's a bit annoying, like the friend was getting a bit frustrated with them, and this person traced it back to being in school and putting their hand up to answer a question, and they got the question wrong and the teacher kind of like laughed and disregarded them. So when that happens to a 6 or 7 year old, putting your hand up in class, that is your whole world. That is the most important thing that's happening to you there and then. So for the next week, that child remembers, I don't put my hand up because of that experience.
Yeah.
They start to feel shame, and as time passes in that 6 or 7 year old's world, a month on, they start to forget why they don't put their hand up, but they've internalised, nobody wants to hear what you've got to say, don't put your hand up, you're silly, these kind of things.
Yeah.
Fast forward to this child being a teenager, maybe other things have happened where they've started to feel a little bit of shame, where they've spoke out in a group environment, but this belief now is really embedded. I don't speak up in groups. Nobody wants to hear what I've got to say. All of a sudden, they're in their 30s and they've got social anxiety. Nobody wants to hear what I've got to say, but they don't know why. They don't know where that comes from. But, going to therapy and exploring the past, doing their inner child work, they're able to identify where that belief comes from, and then they can look at that from their adult perspective. Who's in the wrong there? It's not the 6 or 7 year old, it's the teacher who made that child feel humiliated. Whereas, if they had said, well done for putting your hand up, but this is how we could get this answer next time, but that was really brave, that child would have gone on and, maybe next week put their hand up again and answered the question, got it right, and not be a man in their 30s who's dealing with social anxiety.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like because that in itself, it's obviously not a small thing when you describe it like you did, but it's something that happens all the time. Like you just dismiss things or people or what things say, or even your own thoughts. And I think, again, one of the reasons that I think your work is so impactful is because you make things so clear and so easy to understand the why. And then again, personally, I think once you understand the why, then it's easier to then explore the inner child stuff, because we make everything so big in our heads, don't we? Like, where's this come from? There's something wrong with me, when actually there's not. We're all like, no one's normal. We're all normal.
Well, perspective again. If you do something, the perspective that you have on that, how you judge yourself compared to if it was somebody else, the scale is just like that, isn't it? An example I use with clients a lot of the time is if you was to spill your water over now, what kind of things do you think you might say to yourself?
I'm so stupid, why did I just do that? I'm so clumsy, I always mess things up. And what might you think about me in terms of you spilling your water over? Courtney thinks I'm an idiot.
She's judging me. You might, leave today and think, what's she thinking about me spilling that glass of water over? If I was to spill my glass of water over now, what would you think?
Nothing at all. I'd be like, oh my God, it's fine.
Nothing. And that's the reality. If you was to do it, I wouldn't think anything of it. You'd leave here, it would never enter my head ever again. And it's ridiculous, isn't it? But if you're to do it, you're going over it and over it and over it, and that is exhausting. And the reality is, the other person doesn't even care. They've never thought about it ever again, just like you would never think about it ever again if it was the other way around.
Why are we so hard on ourselves? Like, why?
It's the learned behaviour, isn't it? You just learn to be so critical of yourself, and it's coming back to that place of protection, or looking for the evidence. I'm not good enough. Why am I not good enough? I'm so stupid. Look, here's more evidence as to why I am. And just becoming aware of when you are doing that and challenging yourself the impact that will have on you in the long run. Even things, you know, when the door slams behind you, you might say to yourself, oh, stupid.
Yeah.
It's just the door slamming, you know, just notice when you're doing it and correct yourself. It's just the door slamming.
Yeah.
And over time, the more you do that, you know, naturally you will just begin to stop being so harsh on yourself.
Yeah. Once you start to notice, you don't realise how much you do it, do you?
Yeah, and once you do start to notice, it can become quite comical.
Yeah. Is it, how I do it is like I just talk to myself all the time, which I think is a normal thing, but like, is that really how you do it? Like, no, Chlo, it's not stupid, it's...
Yeah, just your internal dialogue with yourself.
Yeah.
Just correcting yourself and being kinder and like nurturing, like thinking about what would I say to my friend if this was them, you know, and being that person to yourself as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about self-worth, because I feel like we're in a bit of a self-worth pandemic in that everyone, and for reasons that you've probably explained about inner child and what we're taught and like behaviours and stuff. And you've mentioned affirmations, but I do think there is a bit of a surge at the minute where people are really trying to like themselves a bit more. So what are your thoughts or views on self-worth?
Yeah. Like you said, we've covered it in things that we've said there, about like comparison, how we view ourselves. You know, so many people that I work with now, especially young women, young girls, you know, it's a lot to do with self-worth, their relationship with themselves, how they view themselves, people being so critical of themselves. And, you know, when we do the work like the inner child healing, understanding our limiting beliefs, connecting with ourselves, being more kinder, being nurturing with ourselves, we see a shift in our self-worth change, massively. But we need to show up for ourselves properly, and we need to be consistent with it. So yeah, it is the things like combating our inner critic, the negative self-talk, but it's like, how can we really show up for ourselves? And it's things like doing things that are non-negotiable, like treating yourself with respect. So like something that I will do is, you know, I will every Tuesday I will go to a yoga class. So I'll go to yoga classes or gym classes, you know, throughout the week, but on a Tuesday I have to go no matter what's going on in my life. And on a Tuesday I will go by myself. You know, if friends ask to come with me, I will always do that on a different day. And it's not just about going to the yoga class on the Tuesday and the benefits that I get from that, but it's me showing up for myself, it's me being consistent, it's me sending that message to my subconscious that says, I am worth this.
Yeah.
You know, I am not cancelling for other people. My needs come first. I am a priority.
Yeah.
So it's so much more than that yoga class. It's everything that comes with it. So it's finding ways that you can really show up for yourself. You can prioritise your own needs. You can put yourself first, you know, however that looks like for you. And, you know, maybe that's just making sure that I have home-cooked meals, or making sure that I do that self-care, like having that long bath, or, you know, putting a nice outfit on in the morning, doing your hair nice. Like, these little things, they do have a massive impact. Like, I see stuff on social media, like, self-care isn't just a face mask. Like, no, it is. Like, sitting and finding the time to do a face mask and prioritise that time for yourself, show yourself that you're worth it. It has a huge impact on you. It's not just about doing that face mask.
Yeah. I think it's about, like, we're all so connected to everyone else through our phones, through work, and through, like, giving back. And I think, like, work-life culture is a bit of a, like, it's brutal, isn't it? Like, everyone just grinds at the minute, and it's a lot. So I think, it is important to just switch off and, like, have you time.
Yeah. And like you said there, everybody is just trying to do more and more and more and more and more. It's like, it's not enough. I need to be doing the next thing. I need to be doing the next thing. And it's so important to just sit back and reflect on how far you have came.
Yeah.
Go back to your inner child, to your younger self. What would you, 5 years ago, think of the version of you that exists now? And I applied that to myself recently. I remember being 21 years old, working in a recruitment job, which, you know, was so monotonous. And I used to dream of like having an apartment in town, and I'd go on Rightmove and I'd look through the apartments and I'd think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to afford to live there. And then fast forward, you know, however many years, and I'm living in an absolutely gorgeous apartment in the middle of Manchester, you know, much nicer than these apartments that I was drooling over on Rightmove. And I'm finding myself moaning, it's not tidy enough, or this is annoying me, or that. And I just had to stop and just take a minute to reflect on how far I've come. And I have got myself here. Nobody has helped me get to this point. It's through my hard work, from the decisions that I've made. And it's so important to just stop and give yourself credit for that, you know, and not trying to be chasing more and more and more all the time. Just allow yourself to be in the present and enjoy where you're at, you know. Because I think we can put that pressure on ourselves and spend so much time thinking, what is the next best thing? What is the next best thing? And, you know, we're not enjoying where we're at in that moment.
Don't you think when you accept yourself and where you are, and I think like when you know yourself well enough to know that you're just going to keep pushing anyway, so you're gonna like trust yourself to advance in areas that you want to go in, whether that's career or relationships or finances or whatever, and you just accept where you are and be happy with it. It feels so refreshing.
Yeah, it does.
Because I think you're right, like we do put so much pressure on ourselves to be more, and it's not always that beneficial, is it?
Yeah, it's not at all. And it comes back to like your personal boundaries as well, like the boundaries that you have with yourself. So like your self-worth and your boundaries, like giving yourself permission to switch off. You know, that is something that I am very, very good at. And
have you always been good at it?
No, I don't think so.
How do you do it? Because I think a lot of people struggle with it.
I've not always been good at it. But the work that I do, it is very demanding. It uses a lot of my energy, you know, being there for other people. And I need to switch off, otherwise I wouldn't be able to show up for my clients and do the work that I do. But I will have the hours that I work each week. I'm very good at switching off, and I have a separate work phone, which you contact me on my work phone, which probably you've noticed that it can take me days to reply sometimes. It's because when I'm not working, that work phone is away, and I will only look at it, you know, during like my times that I've set aside. And you know, obviously I'll think about my clients a lot out of work, and it's just natural for them to come into my headspace a lot, but I will, you know, I've got very good at being able to decompartmentalize and move away from it and just prioritize my time and my spare time, making sure I am doing things that make me feel good, spending time with, you know, my people that make me feel good, having the right people around me, not spending time with people who don't make me feel good, really noticing like the people that I'm around where I feel uplifted, energized, the people that when I'm around, I come away from them feeling exhausted, and just making sure that I'm doing things that are good for me.
How have you done that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with switching off, and from the sounds of what you've just said, it sounds like you've made quite intuitive, self-informed decisions. But how do you it's actually really hard to switch off, especially when your phone's there. You can't.
It is really hard to switch off, isn't it? And I guess it's, you know, really consciously making the effort to do these things. Listening to yourself, trusting yourself with what you need. You know, if people have a tendency to people please, it's going to be a lot harder for them to switch off. You know, maybe they know that they need that evening to themselves, but their flatmate is saying let's have food together, or someone's asking them to go out for tea. But listen to yourself. Have you got the energy to do that?
Yeah.
You know, if the answer is no, you know, you can politely decline that invitation, and not force yourself to do things that that you don't want to do, because you're the one that's going to pay the price for that.
Yeah. A lot of people also feel guilty for switching off.
Guilt
like they're not doing enough.
Yeah, guilt is a crazy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Guilt is something that people speak about all the time in therapy, and something that, you know, obviously I experience as well. I feel guilt at times for things that I just don't need to feel guilty about. And I stayed at my boyfriend's at the weekend, and I remember feeling guilty that I've not seen my flatmates this weekend, and they're probably not even thinking about it. They're out enjoying their weekend and doing their own thing. They've not even thought twice of, Courtney's not stayed here, they're not bothered.
Yeah.
But those thoughts kind of come into your head. It's silly, isn't it?
Yeah. With all of this self-worth stuff and practising self-worth and like switching off and solo time and all of that kind of stuff, comes like a stronger sense of self-value.
Yes.
Which then, I think again, that has a knock-on effect in terms of how you carry yourself to then how other people see you.
Yeah.
I see it as like or in my head, as like a cycle.
Yeah.
Because again, I struggled with self-worth massively, but then did a lot of work with you about self-respect and self-value, and I've noticed like such a difference.
Well, you get what you put out. You know, you attract that energy that you give out to people.
Yeah.
So doing a lot of work with young people and relationships, something that comes up a lot in therapy is dating, online dating, which seems to have like taken over these days. But it's, you know, say if somebody's using a dating app, they're on Hinge, and it's a young girl who really wants a relationship, but she has low self-worth. So she feels like when she's speaking to somebody on dating apps, she can't say, I want a relationship, this is what I want, I don't want anything casual, because she might think I'm coming across as too much, I'm going to scare people away.
Yeah.
So she might say, oh, I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah.
So when you say I'm just going with the flow, who are you inviting in?
Other people who want to just go with the flow.
You're inviting in everybody else who wants to just go with the flow. You're inviting in the people who want casual relationships. You then go on a date with somebody, it's been 2 dates, and you know, you think, oh, I'm starting to like this person, I'm going to ask them out again, I'm going to, you know, I want this to go further, and they say, oh, I only want anything casual, I only want something casual, I don't want anything serious.
Yeah.
What does that then do to your self-worth?
Pushes it right down to the floor.
Pushes it right down, and you start to tell yourself things, but you need to make sense of that. So you say, oh, it's because of me, they didn't like me enough.
Yeah.
But no, you didn't establish that enough in the beginning. You've said to someone, I'm looking for something casual, they've said they're looking for something casual, and then you decide, no, I don't want anything casual, I want something more serious. But that's not what this person wants. But from the beginning, you've said that that's okay.
Yeah.
So you further, you feed into that belief of, I am not good enough, I'm never going to find love, I can't have a happy relationship.
Yeah.
You're just adding evidence into it because you're attracting those people.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say from the beginning to somebody, I'm looking for a relationship, well, that person who isn't, well, you know, there's no point in us meeting up because I don't want a casual fling. Yeah. So you're saving space for the people who do want something more serious to come into your life. Yeah. Attracting what you actually want.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure on dating, isn't there? And a lot of, firstly, when you're in like a girls group, it's all you talk to your friends about, like who's dating who, what's going on, what's the latest gossip, have you got a boyfriend this week, who is the boyfriend this week, so there's that pressure. But then also, I feel like dating has changed so much in such a short space of time that people just don't know how to navigate it, and then they do, like you just said, like they don't know how to express what they want. Like I've definitely been caught in that trap, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I think you need to be honest with yourself. You need to establish what is it that you want, because a lot of the time we might even convince ourselves, I'm happy to have casual relationships, I don't want anything serious. Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah.
You know, is that really true? So you need to be honest with yourself and figure out what it is that you actually need before you go out there and start dating people.
Yeah.
And something that you need to accept if you are dating is that you are going to experience rejection.
Yeah.
Every single person who is dating will experience rejection of some form.
Yeah.
If you cannot deal with that rejection, should you be dating? And maybe there's work that you need to do on yourself before you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You know, rejection isn't nice for anybody, but if you're in a place where your self-worth is low, that's really, really going to affect you.
Yeah.
You're really going to take that personally. So, you know, if that's something that you have been struggling with, maybe there's a need for you to go and do the work on yourself before you put yourself in those kind of spaces.
I remember we had this conversation, and I think I came to you and I was like, what do I do about dating? All of my friends are telling me today, and they're telling me to be on dating apps. And you said to me, does it make you feel good? And I was like, no. And you were like, so don't be on the dating app. Like, it was I think a lot of people are like, is this for me? Is this the right way to date? Like, how do I date? Should I be on dating apps because I'm single but I want to meet someone, or I want to get more confident in dating? And I think it goes back to what you feel is comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. You know, does it make you feel good? If it does, continue. If it doesn't, well, why are you there? And that's it. Maybe there's work that you need to do to then go back to the dating apps, because you know, obviously I appreciate if you're not using dating apps, it can be really difficult for people to meet people nowadays. But if it's not making you feel good, ask yourself why. What are the themes that are coming up for you? How can you work on that? How can you change things? And really think about being honest on your profile as well. Like when I think back to when I was using dating apps, I was really honest and transparent on my profile, and it was something that people would always pick up on and say to me. And I think it does come across. It comes across when somebody knows what they want, has the boundaries, and when you know somebody doesn't.
I think there's that thing of like, if you aren't yourself in the beginning, like you could have this amazing crazy whirlwind relationship for 3 to 4 months, and then you start to be yourself, and then like your relationship goes to shit because you just weren't yourself in the beginning.
Comes back to boundaries again, doesn't it? So if you think about when you're dating and getting to know somebody, a lot of people will really hold back on voicing what they need and being their authentic self. So for example, say if you're dating somebody and you want to go out with them at the weekend, and you say, it's Monday, and you say, shall we do something on Saturday? And their response is, oh, I'm not sure, I'll let you know. And then you decide to keep Saturday free. It gets around to Saturday and they say, oh no, I'm going to do something else, sorry. Who is you start to feel a certain way. Who's accountable for those feelings?
Me, like you.
Because you kept your time free when somebody didn't agree to plans with you. So you allowed them, you said to them, it's okay, I'll just sit and wait, and you can let me know on the day if you want to do something or not. When, what could you have done in that situation? You could have said, well, I don't want to keep my weekend free, so if you can let me know by, I don't know, Wednesday, if not, I'm going to make some other plans. Then that person can either say, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I do want to spend time with you. I'm going to prioritise you and spending time with you. But in saying, okay, you're saying to them, I don't value my time. Yeah, you can just let me know. Do you want to spend time with somebody who doesn't value their time?
No.
So it's having those boundaries in the beginning and showing somebody, this is how I will be treated. If you show somebody from the beginning, I'm okay to be treated like that, they're going to continue to treat you like that. And 3-4 months down the line, you have to take accountability for being in a situation that you're not happy with.
And it must be like, it's so much harder to do it 3 to 4 months in than set them at the beginning, right? You have to hold the mirror up to yourself and see the role that you play in creating certain situations. Why are we so scared to be ourselves at the beginning of dating or relationships? Is it vulnerability?
Vulnerability and rejection. Nobody wants to face rejection. And I personally believe that a human being's 2 biggest needs are to form connection, to avoid rejection. So if we are ourselves in the beginning, if we voice what our needs are, if we say what we actually want, if we be authentic, what if somebody rejects us? We're showing them our true selves and they've rejected us.
Yeah.
If we be a different version of ourselves and they reject that, it's not me.
Yeah.
Or if we don't have boundaries and we do everything that they want, maybe I won't get rejected.
Yeah. It's scary, really, isn't it? When you think about it like that, it's because you can just be someone else completely.
Yeah.
God, a penny's just dropped. Do you know, like, when you're talking to your girlfriend sometimes, and this isn't from my experience, but even like from talking to friends and different people and girls about it, people find it so hard to get their head around dating, or why is it not working, or why can't I meet someone, why is everyone else in a relationship, why not me? And it's all because of that, like boundaries and vulnerability, rejection.
Yeah, boundaries, vulnerability, and I think compatibility as well.
Yeah.
Like I spent a lot of time single, 4 years, until I met my boyfriend. And at times I would have thoughts like, it's not going to happen to me, I'm not going to meet somebody. And now it has happened. I really, really value and appreciate all that time that I did spend single.
Yeah.
I needed that. I needed that time by myself. I learned a lot about myself in that time. I was able to be independent. I established my boundaries. You know, I worked on myself, and I'm now in a relationship which, you know, is really healthy, and it's because I had the time to make sense of all that.
In that time, were you actively, I mean, you're a therapist, so I presume you were, but were you actively doing all of this stuff, or was some of it just like subconscious that is now a benefit?
I was actively doing all of this stuff. Like, I went through a breakup in my mid-20s, which was really, really difficult for me. Because that breakup, it brought a lot of grief up for me. So I lost my mum when I was 20. And yeah, going through that breakup, it was a lot of like the abandonment, feeling by myself, and it took me a long time to work through that and make sense of it. I went through my own therapy training, I did a lot of my own personal therapy. And the work that I do with clients, like, I'm in such a privileged position that, you know, I get to meet so many amazing people, and I'm always learning through them as well.
Yeah.
You know, people are coming to me for therapy, but it allows me to make sense of certain things about myself as well.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm always learning and growing. And there are 3 aspects of reality for, you know, I believe that any individual experiences. And that is uncertainty, it's pain, and it's constant work. So I think we went through this, didn't we? So everybody is going to experience pain in their life. So, you know, for me, the breakup that I went through, my own grief, that was very painful. It was uncertain. I didn't know what was ahead of me, what the future looked like. Yeah. But in that pain and with that uncertainty, there was constant work. Yeah. So I learnt about myself. I was able to build on the relationship that I had with myself. I was able to look for the lessons. There was so much positivity that has came out of that pain because I have chosen to look for it. It's about the perspective, isn't it? Yeah. So when we look for the lessons and we find the things that we can be grateful for, that is our motivation to move forward. That's what helps us, I guess, put the things in place to align ourselves to what is meant for us. Yeah. When we focus on the negative, when we focus on the pain and we can't move away from it, we create this black cloud and we end up stuck. Yeah. And you know, we can end up in that victim space where where we don't progress. And I think now I can look back at like my experiences and my pain and think, I am so glad that happened. Like, that breakup, or, you know, the grief that I was going through, you know, I needed that. That was amazing, and I've took so much from it. Yeah.
I think reflection is when you then start to appreciate. Yeah. You can't appreciate the hard times when you're in the hard times, because it's shit. It's hard.
You know, it is so hard, but that's you. Once you have done that, so if you can reflect back and you find the lessons from your past, then when you are experiencing things that are maybe tough in the present, you can draw on those experiences and remind yourself, maybe I'm really feeling it now, but there is going to be lessons in this. This is going to make sense. Trying to find the small bits of gratitude, and when you're in a painful place it can be really hard, but look for the small things, and eventually you will start to move out of that place, and you'll be able to see the bigger picture.
If you mentioned like a black cloud there, and I definitely related to that, and I think a lot of people listening will. Like, if someone's listening to this and they're in that space of just everything feels quite heavy at the minute, what are like some top tips for getting out of that?
So imagine the black cloud is above you, and that is your negative thoughts, and it's following you everywhere you go. So gratitude is the one thing that is going to break through the cloud and allow the sun to shine in. Why
is gratitude so powerful?
It's so powerful because it's allowing us to see the good that exists, and it's going back into that mindset, being optimistic. If we can pinpoint things that we're grateful for, that's going to have like a domino effect. When we focus on the negative, we can start to breed negativity. When we focus on the positive, we breed positivity. So it's right, get the lemon in and squeeze the lemon and get every single last drop of juice out of it, and that is the positivity. So your most negative experiences have got positivity in them, they have got lessons in them, if you choose to look for them. So we can choose to focus on the black cloud and to allow that to just linger around us, or we can squeeze the lemon, we can find the drops of positivity and we can focus on them, and that is going to breed more positivity. It's going to allow us to move forward.
Such a good way to look at it.
And like when the negativity does come and we have maybe quite intense emotions, try not to avoid them. So those protective behaviours, going out, drinking, being self-critical, maybe wanting to isolate, right? They're the things that we're doing to avoid sitting with our feelings. So, I think, I might get this wrong here, but I think it's about 90 seconds it takes to process an emotion. So instead of distracting yourself, can you allow yourself to feel the emotion, let the energy run through you and let it pass. When we try and push it away, the energy exists in our body, it sits there, we don't have room to take the positivity in because we're just full of everything that we're holding on to.
And then you get to a point where you literally like...
you explode. Well, it's that psychological snowball. Have you heard of that term before?
No, I don't think so.
So psychological snowball is just, we experience one thing negative, our snowball is at the top of the hill, it's rolling down the hill, it's gathering all this snow to it, all the snow is our negative experiences. Eventually it has to get to the bottom and it has to explode. So, for example, road rage. You're not angry because that person just cut you up at a junction. You're angry because of all the snowball, all the things that you're holding on to. There's your reason to explode.
It's so interesting, isn't it, when you start to think about it. One last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, and we might have covered some of it in like perspective and stuff, but getting out of our own heads and like getting out of our own way, which I think a lot of people do. I know I have, and a lot of my friends have, and I see it a lot. Like, I work with a lot of people who are quite a bit younger than me, and I see them like getting so het up about certain stuff. How do you kind of avoid, or how do you start to like get out of your own way? Because I think a lot of us do it without even realising. Like, we're putting blockers in our route.
So one thing that I am a massive advocate of is journaling. So I do a lot of journaling workshops actually, and journaling allows us to make sense of our feelings. Journaling mirrors our subconscious, so we can start writing about something and all of a sudden we're writing about something that we didn't intend to, and it's because we're making sense of all the thoughts that we're having, we're prioritising time for us, it allows us to make sense of our needs. And when we are in our own heads and we're going round and round and round in circles, we can end up just in this loop. Whereas when we sit down, we start to write about things, we can make sense of it, we can find solution. So that's a massive thing that we can do. Obviously going to therapy, you know, if we've got people that we can speak to, whether that's friends or family, you know, always encouraging conversation, trying to be more mindful, mindfulness practice, you know, being outside in nature, exercise, anything that's going to bring you into the present, so that activates our soothing system, that brings us into like our window of tolerance, makes us feel calm, makes us feel relaxed. They're all things that are going to help you get out of that headspace, get out of your way, and bring yourself into the present. The more time we spend in the present, the more time we spend activating the soothing system, doing things that make us feel good, the more easy it's going to be to feel motivated to do the things that we need to do, and take us away from that threat system, from those negative thoughts, from the things that are bothering us.
Yeah. And again, that's such a simple answer to something that we get so like bothered about though, don't we? Like, oh, have you ever felt like, oh, I'm in my head, like, fucking get out, like, what do I do with all of this noise and heaviness?
Yeah, and for people that have experienced trauma, it's going to be more difficult for them to be in that soothing system.
Yeah.
So we have what is called a window of tolerance.
Okay.
So our window of tolerance, when we are in it, we are calm, we're relaxed, we're rational, we can make sense of things. So we can move out of our window of tolerance in two different directions.
Okay.
So if we go up, we go to our hyper arousal zone. So I remember the hyper arousal zone by thinking of a volcano.
Okay.
So if I said to you, you're acting like a volcano, what kind of things will you be experiencing?
Do you mean like in my head?
Yeah, what kind of symptoms? If I said someone is a volcano, how do you think they'll be behaving?
Like irrational, erratic, lashing out, loud, abrasive.
Yeah, maybe panic attacks, maybe anger, hot sweats. They're out of control, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you can be in your hyper arousal, or you can go to your hypo arousal.
Okay.
So the hypo arousal, I remember by thinking of an iceberg.
Okay.
So if somebody is acting like an iceberg, they might be cold, they might be numb, they might be detached, they might be disassociating. So both of these things is you not being in your window of tolerance. So we want to spend as much time as we can in our window of tolerance. So we do that by doing things that are soothing for us.
Yeah.
So things like being mindful, journaling, speaking to people, doing things that make us feel good. But yeah, if you have experienced trauma, your window of tolerance is going to be a lot smaller. So you're going to be in the hyper or hypo arousal zones more often. So you're probably going to have to do a little bit more work than somebody who's not been through significant trauma to get yourself into that relaxed state.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does sound so simple, doesn't it? But
it sounds so simple,
but it's not. It takes a lot of work, a lot of consistency. It takes a lot of time. But, you know, you are worth it.
Yeah.
The relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship that you will ever have. And when you prioritise that, when you put the time and the effort into yourself, that's going to reflect on the relationships around you. If you're somebody who is dating and, you know, it's not going anywhere, can you start to prioritise that relationship with yourself a little bit more? You know, stop dating people who are not right for you. Listen to your intuition. Use that time and energy, invest it into yourself. Go back to dating, or, you know, when you're in a better place, and you know you're going to see the results. Yeah. But yeah, it does take time and effort.
Yeah. No, it
consistency.
does. Yeah, and I think the comment that I keep making about simple, I know it's hard, but I think sometimes we look for answers that aren't there because it is like the journaling and the switching off. You know, sometimes I think I definitely do, like try and look for this overcomplicated thing that doesn't exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do you know what I think it is as well? Because some things seem so simple, like journaling or coming home, lighting a candle, making my environment nice. Sometimes I'll find myself recommending these things to clients. At times I think, I hope they're not sat there thinking, is she patronising me? Like, I'm paying this woman to come and, you know, help me work for my mental health. She's telling me to go home and light a candle. But, you know, when you're consistent with these things, it's the bigger picture, isn't it? It's prioritising the time, showing up for yourself. You know, you are important, your environment is important, lighting that candle is important. The more you do these things, the more consistently you are with things, these simple things become huge things and they have a massive effect on you.
Yeah.
But people think, lighting that candle, writing in my journal, I'm not feeling anything straight away, it's not done anything. So I'm just going to give up, I'm not doing it. I'm going out, I'm getting drunk with my mates, I'm not doing it, it's pointless.
Yeah.
But you need to be consistent with these little things over time, and everything combined, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, really helpful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Just to end the episode, I always end it with tips from you for people to encourage them to be themselves. So what would your top 3 tips be?
My top 3 tips to encourage you to be yourself. I think allowing yourself to connect to your inner child in like a playful way. You know, be silly. Think as a child, you know, you'd run around, you'd dance, you'd sing, you'd be playful, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. Allow yourself to be that version of yourself as an adult. You know, sing around your apartment, dance around, just be more authentic. Just a lot of the things that we've spoke about today, prioritising the time for yourself. And my last thing would be boundaries, work on your boundaries. There is a very, very, very good book that I'd recommend, which is The Joy of Being Selfish.
Okay.
Amazing for anybody who wants to work on that relationship with themselves, wants to show up for themselves a little bit more. There's lots of good stuff in there. So yeah, but I'd say the last one, boundaries.
Cool. Thank you so much. This was really good.
Welcome. Thank you.